Friends, Tiananmen Square 1989 is a tragedy we will never forget. It will never again be repeated because the time for China's political reform has come. Every rainfall, we, the China's political reform team, honor the martyrs, condemn totalitarianism, and most importantly, continue to advance our mission to liberate the Chinese people and defend world peace. Things are changing. 2022 will be year one of China's democratization. The circumstances favorable to democratization are united. In 2022, all events that were destined to happen in history exploded into the world, at the same time in seemingly accidental forms. Beyond the expectations of the whole world, what was impossible now becomes possible. Internationally, the Ukrainian people will defeat the dictator Putin. This will lead Xi Jinping into a trap and crush his ambition to be Mao too. The coalition of all democratic countries in the world, and in East Asia in particular, imposes great pressure on totalitarianism than ever before. Taiwan's irreversible independence makes Marxists guilty of the Chinese nation. Economically, the pandemic lockdown has already destroyed Shanghai, the big brother leader of the Chinese economy. For the first time since the birth of Shanghai, my hometown is in a coma. This zero-COVID policy at all costs penalizes all Chinese. The philosophy of running, which means immigrating abroad, has become the new belief of the elites. Foreign house price will destroy the financial system. The relocation of production chains to neighboring countries such as Vietnam is aggravating the economic crisis. Massive business failures and the resulting unemployment levels are eroding the legitimacy of CCP, which has relied on economic success since then. Inside the society, more and more Chinese people are waking up in the Marxist concentration camp of confinement. The people who, for years, have believed that democracy does not bring food recognize today that without democracy, there is no longer any food to eat, not even what to save alive. With their champion quality that China is accustomed to attribute to them, the Shanghainese have reinforced their democracy competence during the fight against the blockade. Entrepreneurs who have only sought profits in the past have learned a lesson. Totalitarianism will ultimately destroy the fruits of my life's hard work. The elites who supported the regime in place now understand that without political reform, the cultural revolution will inevitably happen again. Within the communist regime, the vast majority of party, government, and military leaders have realized that they must not let Xi destroy our country. They have resolved to stand firmly with the nation and the people when the time comes, especially as they do not want to be thrown into prison as dictators lust and accomplices like Mao's gang of four. Today, it is not China, but Marxist totalitarianism and its dictate who are on the verge of collapse. China, our homeland and your friend, is facing its last, darkest night before welcoming the dawn of freedom. All members of our China's political reform team are aware that the moment of freedom for our compatriots will soon be here. This year, we have made great progress. The first wave came with Putin's defeat in Ukraine in March. The second, large wave came during the total blockade of Shanghai in April. The third, the fourth, and so on will arrive soon. More and more elites within the regime are joining us. They have admitted that a change of leaders will not solve the fundamental problems of the Marxist regime. As the saying goes, a leopard can't change its spots. Shave the coat, the spots are still there. Together, we are developing a plan. For example, the plan to make Shanghai the first special zone of democratic political reform, to tell the world our determination. The Taiwan Tour project for mainland reformers to interact with Taiwanese society. Unless mainland China kicks off Marxism and becomes democratic, there will be no peace on both sides of the street, and mankind will not be able to escape a third world war. So far, the world has not yet realized this danger that is 1,000 times more serious than Putin's war. These new circumstances will give birth to democratic China. The strategy guiding democratization is born out of humanistic democracy. To replace the old Marxist regime, a convincing new model must be found. Since 1989, the Free Camp committed two fundamental faults. First, we mistakenly think that people's movement against the CCP is a correct strategy, like the 1789 revolution and the color revolutions. We have forgotten that the 1789 revolution was born from a new concept of liberalism with a new republic model promoted during the Age of Enlightenment. On the other hand, modern democracy movements of China do not have their own the spirit of law, nor their own what is the third estate, nor common sense. They do not even have their own revolutionary army, 1 million communists of which mobilized all the Chinese elites to feed the revolution of 1911. The Republic of China in exile in Taiwan is the fruit of this revolution. The second fault is that the Chinese Democrats do not have a new model of democracy to adapt to China, because the seriously ill Western democracies have lost the confidence of all Chinese reformers, even if they have never given up the democratic idea. If the dissidents are idealistic, these reformers in power will be realistic because they are responsible for the destiny of the nation. They cannot let sick Western democracies trouble a society of 1.4 billion people. Hence, the brilliant rise of the Chinese Tocqueville, Wang Huning, a now scholar of the 19th and currently one of the 7 rulers of the state, thanks to the United States, against the United States, a book well appreciated by the ruling elites. He stilled the CCP's great eminence. Jiang Zemin's 3 representations is his solution for Chinese-style democratization. Despite its great quality, however, this theory cannot escape the prison of Marxism. Hu Jintao wanted to restore traditional Confucianism as his slogan, harmonious society says. However, the demonization of Confucianism since the movement of May 4, 1919, and the Western culture racism against Chinese civilization for 2 centuries have together killed this attempt at Confucian democracy in the cradle. Neither Western democracy nor traditional Confucianism. Xi Jinping finally declared the return of Marxism from the Tiananmen Gate Tower on the occasion of the CCP's 100th anniversary in 2021. The absence of a new consensual political philosophy has stalled China's democratization until the birth of a humanistic democracy, which is the strategy of our China's political reform team. This philosophy brings together the 4 theories: Confucianist humanism, the practices of Western democracy, Sun Yat-sen's separation of 5 powers, constitution including the executive, legislative, judicial branches, examination, and control, and my current theory of the unity of the 3 sovereignties, which are those of the past, the tradition, of the present, the public opinion, and of the future, the destiny of the nation. For the first time, democracy has a Sino-Western and therefore universal model. Compared to modern Western democracy, humanistic democracy has new advantages. First, to avoid the social division produced by the strangle of ideology. For example, the 3 electoral blocks of the extreme left and extreme right and the center, which very separated during the French presidential elections of 2022. Humanistic democracy establishes a democracy that does not run on parties fighting each other, but on concrete solutions. It sets up a quota for independent elected representatives in order to promote the principle of middle way, which is the traditional virtue of both French and Chinese politics. Second, to control populism due to vote passion, such as Trump's entering into the White House. Humanistic democracy implements a voting training to restore the quality of democracy. Third, to achieve real equality of opportunity against the control of big names and big parties on the candidate lists. Humanistic democracy sets up a system of drawing lots for no party elected officials passing a driving state training. This measure, which unites Greek and Chinese traditions, allows democracy to overcome prejudices about women, minority, the poor, the rich, and others. Firstly, in order to adopt a long-term strategy which is very often troubled by public opinion and thus often is actually too unstable, humanistic democracy puts in place, according to my theory of the unity of the 3 sovereignties, a mechanism which allows the citizen of the present to represent those of the past and the future in order to defend the continuity of the general interest of a nation. According to their basic philosophies, a democracy which assumes that man is born good and a Western civilization born monotheism, which assumes that man is born bad, are contradictory. This is the philosophical root of all the problems of existing democracies. The solution is a humanistic democracy, which assumes that man is born good because it was born of a secular and human civilization, the Confucian civilization, whose philosophical starting point is that man is born good. Humanistic democracy, inheriting Western and Confucianist traditions, adapting to the times, responding to the demands of the people, reaching beyond all ideologies, being favorable to a harmonious society, and guaranteeing the stability of the country during the democratic transition will become a new model of democracy appreciated by the vast majority of reformers. This strategy of humanistic democracy will achieve a true alternation of regime. Finally, our plan is credible and practical for making a success China's democratization. Based on humanistic democracy, our plan to democratize China is to have a consensus of elites both inside and outside the CCP. This has 5 actions. The first is to develop the thought of humanistic democracy. This will be the greatest consensus of citizens, and it will become the philosophy of the new China's Republic by registering it through a referendum in the new constitution, and it will further be integrated into national education. It is the guide for making a success out of China's democratization. The second action is to conceive a complete model of humanistic democracy. This will be the political system of the new China's Republic and the principal body of its new constitution. It is a concept for making a success out of China's democratization. The third action is to draft the programs of humanistic democracy. These will be the fundamental programs for the new China's Republic. They are global and long-term in favor of the happiness of citizens, the harmony of families, the integration of minorities, the dynamics of local territories, the reunion of the two sides of the street, the prosperity of the nation and the world peace. Depending on the circumstances, we will also draft urgent policies such as economic recovery, a peaceful and democratic reunion of China, reform of diplomacy, etc. These programs are the guarantee for making a success out of China's democratization. The first action is to teach citizens. This will be the fundamental policy of the new China's Republic to form a more reasonable and independent democratic citizens. We will establish a system of public and free schools of humanistic democracy throughout the country. This will be the mission of the first power, the power of education and examination conferred by the new constitution. The first step is to make the China's political reform YouTube channel and Internet School of Humanistic Democracy. Schools of humanistic democracy are the citizens' strategy for making a success out of China's democratization. The fifth action is to communicate with the world. The new China's Republic must restore its new international image and regain the trust of the world. Currently, we are carrying out 3 missions. First, explaining to the world the success of China's democratization. Second, presenting to the world a new free China after democratization, when it will be a democratic and humanistic China. Third, inviting the world to support China's democratization. Our first step is to publish videos and articles in French and English, like this one. They present our vision of the world and the foreign affairs policies of the new China's Republic. A democratic and humanistic China is the international image for making a success out of China's democratization. The Chinese nation has an important historical date with democracy, and a plan with pragmatic actions that can amplify the effect of this opportunity 1,000 times the largest since 1989. As a historian and a man of action, I feel more intensely than ever the accumulation of great eruptive force. Farmers inside and outside the CCP are negotiating and rallying. The arrow of democratic political reform is already on its bowstring. More so, we have a great vision and a great perspective beyond political democratization. We will comprehensively reform the Chinese society destroyed by Marxism and build a new one in which the gentleman succeed, the villain fears, and the vast majority of people dare to uphold justice and be kind to others. We also hope that China's democracy, the model of a humanistic democracy, can serve as an example to the world. As soon as Marxist totalitarianism is expired, we will restore a Chinese humanistic spiritual home where evil will never beat justice and virtue will prevail over vice. The world will welcome a Chinese nation which will have regained its virtue, its reason, its feelings, its glory, and its dream. China will once again become a beacon for the progress of human civilization. Our China's political reform team brings together old experience, new theories, grand strategies, and a worldview that will ensure the success of democratization in China. Today, more and more Chinese who have never been interested in politics or who have been afraid of it are uttering for the first time in their life the word freedom, 自由. Among them is an 18-year-old lady, my mother, a survivor of Mao's rear guards from 15 years ago, who is now being harassed like all those in her generation by Xi's white guards. Democratization is not only for us and our children, but also for our increasingly old parents, so that they can enjoy for the first time in the last period of their lives freedom, without regret of being a human on our earth. I committed to it, we committed to it, and the Chinese people prepared it well. Support us and support the freedom of the Chinese people. Share this video and our YouTube channel, China's Political Reform, far and wide to aid totalitarianism and in the name of world peace. I thank you all.